So many of you know we have been focusing on the fifth remembrance this month, which points us to karma, right? That reminder that we are the owners of our actions, heir to our actions, that our actions are the only possessions we have, our only possessions, and the ground upon which we stand. And last week, Lori acknowledged the kind of shame storm that can sometimes come when we really start to look closely at our actions and at our intentions. She said it kind of can stir the muck. And I thought that really was an apt description of it. And she invited us to be willing to look at the consequences of our actions and still be kind to ourselves, recognizing when we act from incomplete understanding. So as we continue to focus on this remembrance, we don't want to beat ourselves up and shame ourselves. That's not the goal. That really we're trying to gain in wisdom and understanding, to purify our hearts and minds from a place of care and wisdom. But what does that mean, right? How can we be with these minds that do struggle with acting unskillfully or with unskillful view when we are unaware of what's driving us in a moment, or we act out of fear or reactivity or wanting? I had shared in an earlier talk about the Buddha teaching his son Rahula that before we act, while we act, after we act, we want to reflect, right? Did this cause harm to myself, to others, to both? Reflecting just as we see our reflection in a mirror. So it feels like a question that we've all been holding together this month in these different ways of what does it mean to reflect and take responsibility and look at our intentions and actions with curiosity and not have that collapse into more pain or shame, harm, more pressure and identification. Because I notice that sometimes I can be so focused and fearful about causing harm that I actually start to kind of grip and clench. And I don't trust myself. I don't trust the moment. I don't trust my relationships. And in that place, I'm realizing that I'm actually more likely to behave unskillfully. I'm so tight. And I was really impacted by something that the meditation teacher, Michelle McDonald, said recently. She and her co-teacher, Jessie Masio Vega Frey, were answering Dhamma questions. And she said something like that as we continue on this path in this practice, we actually develop more and more compassion for greed, hatred, and delusion. And that really kind of knocked me over. This, like, what does that mean? We're supposed to be uprooting greed, hatred, and delusion. How could I be having more and more compassion for it? But I think that that's really true, right? Often we can slip into just wishing all of that away, not wanting to look at it within ourselves, and that we're only good if and when we get rid of all that. And what she said sort of turned a lot of that on its head for me. And part of what they were really emphasizing is that greed, hatred, and delusion are just protections, right? That our minds and hearts grasp onto, sometimes habitually, sometimes unconsciously. And that they're protections that we really want to understand and build a relationship with. How can we be free from acting out of greed, hatred, and delusion unless we really understand and recognize it here? Not out there as someone else's greed, someone else's aversion, someone else's delusion, but right here. I think that this doesn't mean that we enable ourselves, right? Or give ourselves a pass. I'm still kind of feeling into this, right? But just holding that truth that until we befriend and understand why and how our minds can kind of reach for that as a way to manage things, manage the flood of experience, we are not going to be able to be free from it. And so I've been practicing this, I've shared here a couple times, I've stepped into a new role in my professional life as a trainer. And I've been tracking a lot of insecurity and self-doubt and shakiness, kind of like that hindrance stew that can come. And just noticing at times that I'm really afraid in a leadership seat, I kind of have more power to do harm. It's more likely that I will. And I have noticed being really worried about that. And in moments, even kind of freezing up, getting so anxious about it that I'm like kind of frozen. And just trying to cultivate a little bit of compassion for the me who's contracting so much, right? Who feels not good enough and I might do something wrong and afraid of the harm in that. And I share this because I think many of us can have a lot of aversion and judgment to the sides of us that want to be seen well, that can freeze up, that can get anxious about doing the wrong thing, that can even defend and justify ourselves, or can kind of criticize others, or that can be really awkward. This is something I grapple with it also when I'm nervous about causing harm. I actually can say really strange things because I'm so awkward about it. And what would it be like to sort of soften our relationship to all of that a little bit? Right? For me to have a little compassion for the delusion that I could get something right, that there's something to get right in every situation. And compassion to for the aversion to the me that is in development, right? I'm just starting something new. And compassion for what it means to be in human relationships that are pretty complicated and messy. And that's so different from the view that I have to be at the point where I'm good and smooth and equanimous and never cause harm. And that's the good stuff. Because I'm learning so much from building a relationship and befriending the me that is like bumping around and shaky and afraid. And probably doing some things that don't land so well for people, right? That's probably happening. But I've been realizing that if that happens, and sometimes we do cause harm, something doesn't land well, recognizing that if I do, as Bill and Susan say, the moment is over the waterfall. I can't undo it. But what I can do is try to help myself be present and available to the next moment and not collapse into that self view that focuses on me and my fragility or my perfectionism, because that closes my heart and my embodiment. And so there was just one example. There was a meeting one day in this new role where I really kind of bungled it. I responded out of defensiveness, right? Kind of explaining myself because I didn't want to have made a mistake, even though I had, even though I know explaining doesn't help anything. It doesn't make it better. But woof, there it was out of my mouth. And I was so upset with myself, both for all of it, really. And my partner said that night, like, look, like you're learning this, you're really hard on yourself. Why don't you just write down some reminders on sticky notes for tomorrow? And she gave me all these fun shaped sticky notes, different colors. And so all around me the next day in the training, I had all these sticky notes and I kept looking at them and they were kind, right? They were really simple. It was like pause, breathe, attune, take your seat, stay with. It's not about you, right? Gently, just ask. And so to me, there was a way of inviting and orienting to a little more carefulness, heedfulness that wasn't fear-based and shame-based. It wasn't like, oh, I better be careful because if I mess up, everything's going to fall apart. But just like, can I be a little careful when a lot is present within me and around me, a lot of activation, a sense of high stakes? Can I orient toward carefulness? And that felt like a way of caring for myself and the people I was interacting with, because the more I could slow down, the more I would be available to them as well. And I've been thinking about, with all of the remembrances, anytime we go through a change or face something new, anytime we come up against impermanence in any form, which the remembrances are all about, a loss, a transition, health issues, we are prone to falling back into that kind of grasping, reaching, reacting out of greed, hatred, and delusion. We're losing our seats and trying to get stable ground that way, right? Trying to shore up a solid sense of self in ways that are not always skillful or rooted in clear seeing. And so I think this really is an opportunity to slow down, to be willing to look in the mirror with compassion, with gentleness. And I wanted to end with a poem actually by John Wellwood. Some of you may know this one. He says, forget about enlightenment. Sit down wherever you are and listen to the wind singing in your veins. Feel the love, the longing, the fear in your bones. Open your heart to who you are right now, not who you would like to be, not the saint you are striving to become, but the being right here before you, inside you, around you. All of you is holy. You are already more and less than whatever you can know. Breathe out, touch in, let go. So, thank you so much for your attention and presence. We can take those last few words, breathe out, touch in, let go, as maybe our way of transitioning into these bodies, these beings. A little bit of movement. Really give some time to that transition. Being careful with these bodies, with the mind, with these hearts. You may want to stretch a little bit or move, invite a little air into supporting a relaxing and an opening so that we can really gradually come in for a landing, a soft landing. And if some deeper breaths support you in that, please let the body receive a deeper in-breath, slowing down, softening on the out-breath. And this may be the first or 50th time today that you've made a little contact internally with yourself, with your mind and heart and body. And see if that contact can be warm and curious, and receptive. And as Maybe things begin to settle a little bit, or a little sense of spaciousness can allow your attention or invite it maybe to rest with the breath or with sounds coming and going. And on offer is just orienting to that compassion, compassion for ourselves just as we are, compassion even for our places that get stuck, that can be reactive. Just that gentle touching in. And we get lost in story or thoughts or spaciness, sleepiness. How gently can we invite ourselves back? Feeling in moments what it is like to orient to befriending what's here rather than judging or rejecting. for your practice. Hope you all continue to have a good day. I'm going to let everyone unmute. All right, you should be able to unmute. It'd be great to hear your voices as we say goodbye.
Catherine, that was
Thank
lovely.
you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Lovely
Lori.
talking.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Catherine.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
And love that poem.
Oh,
Can you
thank
share the name of that poem?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's John Welwood, Forget About Enlightenment.
Forget About Enlightenment by
Yeah.
Joan or Jennifer?
John Welwood.
Oh,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forget About Enlightenment.
Yeah, kind of a weird title to offer here. I'm like, no, remember it, but also forget. Yeah.
And
Thank you.
thank you for sharing, opening up to us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.